Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the October 14th, 2025 meeting of the Board of Education. With us here tonight, we have Mr. Krasnoff, Mr. Lee, Mrs. Jacobson, myself, Mr. Peterson, Superintendent Testani, Mr. Asa, Mrs. Guernsey, Mrs. Rinaldi, and we have our representatives. Welcome back from our high schools. It's great to see you guys filling out the table. And if you could all stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America. Republic for which it stands, one nation. Thank you. I'm going to ask you to stand up again in just a minute because I did want to take a moment to acknowledge we lost a longtime staff member, former Holland Hill and Osborne Hill principal and also administrator here, Mr. Frank Arnone. He really, I did not know him well, but I think my impression of him from the time that I spent was that he made a big impression on this district and really gave us many years of service. So I would ask if you could stand and just for a moment of silence. Thank you. Now, the next item on our agenda is always a happy thing. We're welcoming back our student representatives from the high schools. We go through the summer and we're working, but we're, vicariously with you guys out there enjoying your time off. But it is great for us to just have that firsthand experience from inside the high schools. And I know we have new faces with us today, so I'll just throw it off to, we have first our Fairfield Ludlow High School. Just introduce yourselves and give us your report. Excuse me, I'm sorry. Everyone, there's new instructions about how to use the microphones. Since you've been with us, you can just press the button once and it will stay on for the entirety of your talk.
Okay.
And then when you're done, just press again. Thank you.
The freshmen, sophomores, and juniors will be taking the PSATs tomorrow. Us seniors have the day off, and there will also be a truck giving out free Dunkin' samples as well.
The first thing I want to highlight is that our school musical Carrie is opening next weekend. We have shows next weekend and then the following weekend, and some special events included in that. We have one of the shows is on Halloween. It's a horror musical, so it's very on theme. There's going to be a costume contest, like all sorts of fun events, like a raffle. And then there's an alumni show on the 25th that is recognizing our drama club alumni. And going along with the Carrie show, which has a lot of sensitive subject matter like bullying, there's going to be an advisory in all of our homerooms where we're going to explore like bullying and belonging and make sure that everyone's prepared to handle the more mature themes of the music.
Sophomore dance was a success. It took place around 2 weeks ago. And then we also wanted to highlight some sports. Girls field hockey is currently on a 7-game winning streak, including against Ward, and they play next on the 17th against Darien. And then boys football had an exciting win over Norwalk this Friday in overtime, and the final score was 35-34.
Also wanted to take a moment to kind of address like what students have been feeling about the phone policy following its implementation and just like kind of some effects that the two of us have noticed at Ludlow. And so I guess the main thing is that many students notice that it doesn't feel terribly different because of a lot of our class time. We never had our phones in class. So the majority of our day when we're in class time, we're not really feeling a difference. But I have heard just like frustration that some things are more difficult, more frustrating during free time or during passing time.
Yeah, we also wanted to just highlight like the inconvenience that some students have faced while unlocking the pouch. And we've kind of noticed that as a result, a lot of students like are tending to not really use the pouch as much or just leaving them in the phones in the bag or in their car. But the functionality, I guess, isn't really being used as much, but I haven't really seen the phones out at all. So I think the plan is working in a sense.
I think that's what we wanted to share about like what we had noticed off the get-go.
Thank you. That's very valuable. I appreciate that. We have a new representative from Walter Fitzgerald. If you'd like to introduce yourself, get the microphone over there. Thanks so much.
I'm Allie Cooper, and I'm a senior. I want to thank you for this opportunity to represent the Walter Fitzgerald campus. Our school year is off to a great start. We have 42 students enrolled in the program, and 6 are new this year. We have also welcomed 5 new staff members to WFC. They're Miss Lewis, health teacher, Miss Archibald, PE teacher, Mr. Howell, social studies teacher, Mr. Kasey, technology education teacher, and Mrs. Rena, our part-time school counselor. This first marking period, everyone is focused on learning the Walter Fitzgerald Way, which represents our core values of wisdom in decision making and academics, fortitude in overcoming challenges, and character in actions and relationships. We recently transitioned to a new 4-block schedule, which affords students the opportunity to potentially accelerate their credit earning while also aligning our schedule with Ludlow and Ward. We implemented yonder pouches on the first day of school, and all students have transitioned well to spending their school day without their iPhones. Students report feeling less anxious, more socially connected to peers, and a stronger overall school climate. We have had a series of guest speakers on our program, Pathways to a Career. Our first speaker shared his alternative route to becoming a nurse. Our next speaker is a former student who is now a hairdresser, and we have a zoo veteran from the Bearsley Zoo coming in November. The Fairfield Foundation for Education awarded a teacher at our school a grant called Fitz Photos. We are fortunate to be purchasing new digital cameras and will invite more professional photographers to serve as guest speakers. Last week, 15 students and 2 staff members joined Ludlow High School on a college visit to the University of New Haven. This was a great opportunity for classmates to learn more about post-secondary options available to them. WFC continues to be a member of the Long Island Sound School Network, and as part of this affiliation, our students conduct research on Fairfield's watershed. Field trips supporting this learning will take place throughout the
Good. Thank you and welcome. And now our award team.
Hello, good evening, everybody. My name's Nahindra Maslan. I'm a returning board student rep. I'm a senior now, so that's very exciting. I would like to thank you guys for allowing us for the opportunity to represent Ward in this way. So first off, we had our fall pep rally to honor all of our fall athletes back in September, and it was a great way for the school community to come together and have a wonderful time.
Hi, I'm Anaya D'Souza. I'm a senior and I'm a new representative, so I want to thank you for this opportunity. I just want to start by saying we had our homecoming football game on September 26th, where we beat Bridgeport Central, followed by our homecoming dance for juniors and seniors, which we held at our school, and it was a success.
Good evening. My name is Aura Corral, and I am very blessed for the opportunity to represent Fairfield Ward High School. And as Fairfield Ludlow said, we have also implemented the phone pouches policy, which was effective on October 6th, Monday. And we've noticed significantly a change in the attention of students, and they've been very attentive to their surroundings as well as in classroom. As well as, in addition, tomorrow the PSAT will be administrated to the 9th through 11th graders.
We've been having college admissions representatives visit our school. So students just have the opportunity to go during classes and ask questions or learn more about colleges they're interested in. We also had a college and career fair, which was held at the Hartford Healthcare Amphitheater on September 30th. Students were able to meet admissions officers and businesses from across the country and explore future career options.
Our financial aid night will be on Thursday, October 16th. It'll be a virtual presentation by Jamie Grief, who is the Fairfield University's Office of Financial Aid Director, and it will be open to all Fairfield Ludlow High School and Fairfield Ward High School families.
Lastly, Fairfield Ward High School on September 19th held the club fair, where we featured over 30 of our clubs, featuring academic clubs, career-oriented clubs, musically talented clubs, and a plethora of other clubs. Thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you, everybody. Do any of the members of the board have questions for our representatives? All right, seeing none, I'll just welcome the returning members back. and thank the new members. And I hope it'll be an interesting year for you. You're, of course, welcome to stay at the table for the rest of our meeting. Some of it may be interesting, some of it may be tedious, but this is our work. But you're very welcome to stay and offer your opinion or go home if you have better things to do. But thank you very much for coming. And at this time, I'd invite anyone to come up who wants to offer a public comment on our agenda items tonight. We invite the public to come up and speak on the items on our current agenda. Can come up and speak for up to 3 minutes on any of those topics. If you'd like to, please just come to the table. All right. Seeing none, I guess we'll move on. Item 5A, I do want to say that I was informed by Mrs. Flynn just this morning that there was some hitch with the invitation that went out to PTA Board of Ed reps. Are there any Board of Ed reps in the audience who came tonight? Well, I would invite you to come up and introduce yourselves, but I am also going to repeat this item on our agenda at our next meeting on the 28th. Hopefully all the invitations will go out by that point, and hopefully there'll be more people here. But if you'd like to come up tonight, otherwise you can come here in 2 weeks. If there is no objection to anyone, if there's unanimous consent to just table this and move it back to the 28th. Thank you. All right, moving on to item 5B, presentation and approval of survey of students, CSDE strengths and difficulties questionnaire for 21st century after school programs, with the recommended motion that the Board of Education approve the survey of students CSDE strengths and difficulties questionnaire for 21st century after school programs. Can I have a motion for this? Mr. Asa, seconded by Mrs. Rinaldi. I believe Dr. Zabjancic, I'm sorry, Dr. Parrish would come up and discuss this. This was an item that was brought to leadership's attention just last week, and there was a time-sensitive component to it, which is why I put it on as a one and done at the request of administration. But if you can lead us through this, Dr. Parrish, that would be helpful.
Good evening, Zakia Parrish, Deputy Superintendent. I'm joined today by representatives from Wakeman Boys and Girls Club. We have Greg Dickerson, the Chief Operating Officer, as well as Jeff Behringer, the Southport Clubhouse Director. And today they will be sharing some information about the after-school program that is run at McKinley that is partially funded by the 21st Century Community Learning Centers grant. And there are multiple grants through the 21st CCLC, and part of the grant requirement is to administer the survey that has been included in the attachments that was just provided to us on October 7th and has a window of 2 weeks, which will not permit this to come back for a second read. And so with that, I'd like to turn it over.
Thank you very much for the time. I'm going to run through a couple of slides and then Greg will take it from there. Wakeman Boys and Girls Club has provided McKinley Elementary School students with a safe and engaging and inclusive environment that supports academic success, social emotional growth, and family stability for over 20 years. Wakeman and the McKinley School administrators have collaborated to help students thrive in and out of school. Participation is free of charge for all the students in the CCLC grant, and this survey it helps measure the program's impact that we have so we can implement continuous improvement. Before each school year, Wakeman Boys and Girls Club staff meet with McKinley administrators and teachers to identify students' needs and align after-school activities with academic and social goals. Enrichment activities are designed using FPS and state curriculum guidelines. Wakeman site director, myself, communicates regularly with the principal and assigned principal to discuss student agendas, share data, tailor support, and especially for students requiring additional mental health or academic assistance. Wakeman staff attend the school's open house and facility meetings to share program goals, answer questions, and encourage collaboration. And all Wakeman staff are trained in McKinley safety and supervision protocols. And I'll also add to that, go through Wakeman Boys and Girls Club training and onboarding.
All right, thanks, Jeff. So a major component of the partnership is data sharing. There's a mutual commitment from both parties, Wakeman Boys and Girls Club, as well as the McKinley School administrators, to share data, and that really helps us to align efforts to support students in a holistic way. There's different types of data that we share, some academic, some social, emotional, behavioral, different things. And again, they're all aligned to kind of help us support students in the most effective way. The data sharing partnership is really centered around the Fairfield Public Schools data sharing agreement, as well as the Wakeman Boys and Girls Club parent/guardian membership agreement. The excerpt that you see highlighted here is pulled from our Wakeman Boys and Girls Club membership parent and guardian agreement, which all participants of the program their guardians complete in order for them to be registered in the program. So you can see there that they consent to the collection of surveys, questionnaires, interviews, and focus groups as a part of their participation in our after-school program. And then you may be asking, how do we share the data? What do we do with the data? So obviously we assess it internally as an organization to try to develop holistic supports for these young people. We also work with school administrators, again, to kind of collaborate on developing those supports. The information is also shared with our funders. It's a federal grant which passes through the Connecticut State Department of Education. So the data is also shared with the State Department of Education and our funders at the federal level, and school administrators as well. And so I think you have copies of the surveys with you. So at this point, that concludes our presentation. If there are any questions, please feel free to ask, and we're more than welcome to answer.
Thank you very much. Mr. Asa.
Thank you for this. This is a thing that is done repetitively, correct? Year
Annually.
after year.
Yep.
And I don't have the past ones in front of me, but is there anything noteworthy that you wanted to point out that's different this year in the questions or the process, or is this pretty much a repeat of what we did last year?
I think it's pretty standard. I don't think the questions have changed. We kind of have the process down. The only difference is that I think in previous years, the state has used the term questionnaire, which allowed us to just internally administer the survey. This year, they're actually calling it a survey. So hence why we're here presenting it to you for approval. Yeah.
Thank you for pointing that out.
Yep.
Appreciate it.
Hi, thank you for coming, and thank you for your partnership and for what you do for our community and our students. I just have a really quick question. Can you just tell me what the purpose of including the SASID number is for?
Yeah, that is a good question. I think we can look at that, and we would have to get back to you. I'm not 100% sure.
Maybe Dr. Parrish, do you know why they include the state ID number?
The state is the one that actually created the survey, so I'm assuming that they link it back some way, but
They do?
yeah,
Okay.
the entire document was generated by the state, so it doesn't allow
It was.
for us to modify it in any way.
No, I didn't think that it was. I just wanted to know if there was specific reasons. I assumed there was a linkage in terms of the data sharing. So it's just my question. But other than that, nothing else. Thank you so much.
Mrs. Mexican.
Yeah, thank you. I'm just curious about the bolded text that you'd had on the slide and in our presentation, which references surveys, questionnaires, interviews, focus groups, and, well, I don't worry about the membership applications. What else is generally done beyond this?
Yeah, I think there's several ways that we try to gather information on our young people that are participating in our program. So there's student surveys. We may assemble focus groups around getting students' voice so that we can kind of tailor the program to meet their needs and their interests. So throughout the year, there's just various ways that we try to engage them to gather feedback so that we can incorporate that feedback in the design of our programs.
Are you ever surveying parents
Yes.
in terms of what they're observing in their children?
Yes, we do that as well. Yep.
Okay. And then so the data sharing is pretty much from you to the school system as opposed to the school system to you. Is that correct?
In this case, yes, but I think there's a mutual kind of feedback loop there. So if there are things that are transpiring in the school that may impact the students' behavior during after school, there's communication there. If there's things that we're changing in terms of our staffing, our policies, anything like that, there's communication the other way. So I think there's an open channel of communication both ways. It just depends on what the content is and who's initiating that dialogue.
And so then my last question would be to Dr. Parrish. What are the parameters for what can be shared?
So
Because and I just want to say that obviously the sharing is going to be in the best interest of supporting the student, but I assume that there are some restrictions.
right, so it's within the parameters of our own FPS data sharing agreement. So there, of course, certain confidential things, for example, for reduced lunch status or other things that are protected cannot be shared. That's
So be more behavior focused?
yeah, and it wouldn't be necessarily in explicit detail, but maybe more,
Rough day kind of sharing?
Exactly.
Okay.
Kia's having a rough day. You might just want to keep an eye on her, or, she's not feeling well or has presented herself as not feeling well, but maybe being in the after school program might make her, be more excited and happy. But yeah, it's more along those lines.
All right, thank you.
Another example could be like we work in partnership around like safety. So we try to align some of our practices with the Fairfield Public Schools safety, like emergency procedures. So again, it kind of goes both ways and it depends on the content. But we try to work together in support of the partnership and in support of our students and families.
Ms. Jacobson?
Just one last question I thought of. Have we and you received to date the federal funding that you're supposed to be receiving in completion?
No. We know that, so there are 2 grants that we currently have through 21st Century CCLC, the first of which is year 5 of 5. And we were awarded 43K, but the state said that their minimum allocation would be 50. And then the second grant, we're in year 2 of that grant, and we have not received the allocation for that one. Last year, it was $107,000, but we do not know what it will actually be for this year. So we have not received.
Have you normally received it by this time?
Yes, but all of the grants have been later this year.
I understand. Okay, that's why I asked the question. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any further questions on survey or for Wakeman? All right, seeing none, this is a voting item. If there are members of the public who wish to come up and make public comment on this voting item, you may do so, up to 3 minutes. All right, seeing none, back to the board. All in favor? Mr. Krasnow, Mr. Lee, the vote is unanimous. We have 8-0. Thank you. And thank you very much for your presentation and for your service to the town.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Moving on to item 6, our consent calendar. We have 2 minutes and 4 policies in here. If there's unanimous consent to waive the reading of this, seeing no objection. So I'll offer a motion to approve the items within the consent calendar. Can I have a motion? Mrs. Rinaldi, seconded by Mrs. Guernsey. Any questions or comments on the items in the consent calendar? Seeing none, any comments from the public on items in the consent calendar? Bringing it back to the board, all in favor? A unanimous vote, 8-0. Thank you very much. Moving on to page 2 before 7:30. Page 2 is long. Old business number 7A, approval of Voices in Gifted Education Research Study with the recommended motion that the Board of Education approve the Voices in Education Gifted Education Research Study as enclosed. Mrs. Jacobson, seconded by Mr. Lee. As you will remember, we had presentation on this at our previous meeting. Is there any further question or comment? Mrs. Jacobson.
I just wanted to say thank you for making some of those technical edits to the second revision that's in our backup for tonight. So thank you.
Any other board member? Questions or comments? All right, sending it out to the public. Any questions or questions for or comments from the public on this agenda item? Seeing none, back to the board. All in favor? Unanimous, 8-0. Thank you very much. All right, item 7B, approval of school climate plan. with the recommended motion that the Board of Education approve the school climate plan. May I have a motion? Mrs. Jacobson, seconded by Mr. Lee. Again, this was presented to us at our previous meeting. Are there any further questions from board members? All right, out to the public. This is a voting item. Any questions or any comments from the public on this item? Seeing none, back to the board. All in favor? Another 8-0 vote. Thank you very much. Item 8A, new business, first reading of policies. And I will read through these. I think it's for the sake of the record. Policy 3516, safe and secure school facilities, equipment and grounds. Policy 3516.13, risk management policy statement. Policy 3541.35, bus safety emergency procedures. Policy 4118.23 through 4218.23, conduct. Policy 5131.81, use of technological devices. Policy 6114, emergencies and disaster preparedness. Policy 6114.1, fire emergency drills. Policy 6141.321, student internet use. Policy 6141.3273, use of artificial intelligence. Policy 6146, requirements for graduation. Policy 6161.12, library material review and reconsideration. Policy 6161.13, library collection, development and maintenance. Policy 6161.14, library display and program. And with that, I will turn over to the chair of our policy committee to untangle all of that. Mrs. Maxon-Canale.
Yes, thank you. So this is, we're getting close, Mr. Peterson, to the end of that audit, and this is getting us very, very close to that point. Much of this was statute driven, but definitely not all of it. Obviously, especially with the technology policies, that's very much on the work of the policy committee. But other than that, I'm happy to open it up for questions. And obviously, if there's anything of a significant nature, this would be a good time to voice it to us, because if it's something that I need to put on the policy agenda for next week, if there's something that maybe we need to reconsider, tweak, something was not clear, I would love to be able to do that so we can move forward with these. But that said, I open it up for questions.
Mr. Krasnov.
Thank you. I'm going to start with use of technological devices. No worries.
I'm fine to just jump around. So, yeah, thank you for the question, though. Yeah, mention the policy number when you're making comments, I think.
Yeah, policy number 5131.81. E is the page I'm talking about. Down on D, unauthorized recording, unauthorized use of generative AI. Also in E, unauthorized. I personally would love to see what unauthorized meant and have it better defined, especially when it came to the generative AI. I felt it was a little too open-ended.
And having looked at that policy, it's interesting that you picked that one, because AI is definitely one that, as a result of the presentation here and then our conversation in policy, it's a great point you raise. And yet it's something that, as uncomfortable as we were, we felt we had to remain vague, because the moment we start trying to define that, something new is coming out, and whatever we use with that won't work anymore, to put it simply. But is there anything specific that you can, is it just that you were looking for examples of it, or that there's something to the phrasing itself that was objectionable?
I would have preferred maybe a different wording. You know, I personally would have to brainstorm it. I looked at it as a first read, and I wanted to kind of bring it up for a conversation piece. But with the generative AI, you know, obviously it shouldn't be used for plagiarism. It shouldn't be used for cheating. There's a lot of reasons why we should not use it, but I can probably think of a few that we could use it. So who's going to decide whether it's authorized or unauthorized? To me, the verbiage could have been better defined.
Okay.
Like if I do a picture, I tell it to do music like we saw.
Mm-hmm.
is that an unauthorized thing? Because technically, to an extent, we're kind of like taking not that specific one, but it might be a copyrighted material that we're changing the lyrics now to make a parody. You start going down some pretty slippery slopes there, and I just
Right, and I think a lot could depend on the nature of the assignment, what the nature
Correct.
of the goal of it was. If it
Correct.
was, say the assignment was what would be an inappropriate use of AI, and so you did exactly what you just said, then that would be an appropriate use of it to model inappropriate, I mean, not to,
Correct.
I'm not trying to make it ridiculous. I'm
No,
saying
but
so much could depend on the assignment, so much can depend on the intent. So I definitely hear what you're saying, and I would also agree that it's going to come back to the administration, obviously to implement the policy, and we can see why they're going to be learning just as quickly as our staff and as our students and families are going to need to do, exactly to get a handle on what's allowed and what isn't. So I'm sympathetic to your point, very much
well,
so.
and to that point, on the other policy that goes into generative AI, again, similar thing. There are some uses that it could be considered okay in certain circumstances. So I just think we need to be careful when we make policies dictating what can and cannot be used if there is a bit of a gray area there.
And one thing I should say to that point, I had asked that it be included, but my fault for not noticing that it wasn't here. I will ask that the board receive the regs for this, because I thought specifically for the AI policy that it would have been helpful for we as a board to see, others on the board to see exactly what it is that's being given to staff. So I will make sure that you get that.
I appreciate that. I got a few more quick questions. If you can bear. No.
You want to follow up, Ms. Reza?
Okay.
Yeah, and I just thank you for raising that, Mr. Krasnoff. But I just to reiterate what Mrs. Maxon Kennelly said, I going through this process, this came before the policy committee many times, and I think, as I stated in policy committee, and I think others have stated too, is this is an ever-changing topic. So to the point of the regs being the implementation and the guidance and follow through on this, I personally thought it was important to bring this out to the board, because and I said it in the last policy committee meeting, this is not going to be the last time we see this. This I believe will be a policy over the years that we will have to revisit on multiple occasions as things evolve.
Mr. Krasnoff, you have the floor, but the other people seem to have follow-ups on this issue.
You guys can keep going with the same policy, and then I have other policies, but I guess I
We'll
can
make
move on
time
to
for
those
everything.
after. Yeah.
Thank you. Mrs. Guernsey.
Thanks so much. So I'm also referring to policy 5131.81, use of technological devices. I was part of some of the previous conversations on this. I did not attend the policy meeting where this was voted out of policy. I was actually kind of surprised it was voted out. A lot of the issues that I was concerned about earlier weren't really addressed in this document. I have a couple questions. I'm not even sure who can answer them. Some of them are new. One is around the district technology resources, and I'm just wondering if I can ask the question of who, for our students in pre-K through grade 2, what access do they have to these devices, and specifically the Chromebooks? I don't know who I'm asking this to. I'm not sure.
Marco Tatti, Director of IT. In terms of what access they do have, they do exist in the libraries in carts, and they're used primarily in the library, sometimes loaned out to classrooms for usage, but in general, it's a very infrequent basis. Sometimes at the kindergarten level, we're talking a few times throughout the year, and as they're progressing, they are using a little bit more, learning the mouse, learning the trackpads, the devices, mainly to get ready for the testing. So they're comfortable with the device because they're going to be taking on for the test.
So just to understand, because I'm trying to understand the resource component of this for the Chromebooks. are the Chromebooks that they're using ones that are being held by the Library Media Center then, or are there extra classroom sets that are available to them that are exclusively for these grades or that are shared? Like, where actually are they coming from?
Yeah, generally they're either the tech in the school or the librarian. They're located in their area. I mean, it depends on the school specifically because they kind of share components. But there's carts in all elementary schools that are designated for K1 and 2, generally labeled as such, and that's what they're for. So it's possible there could be an overlap where there's two classrooms using at the same time, but generally speaking, they would come to the library as a first grade class. They would have that cart. There's very few circumstances a scenario where like the cart would be brought to the classroom, but generally speaking, they come to the library. They walk up to the grade 1 cart, they pull them out, and the librarian is the one facilitating that handoff.
Okay, but it doesn't require extra purchases for us to maintain this as a program. They're just,
Yeah, they're essentially the ones that are still working, the older devices for sure. We're not purchasing new ones. They generally are the ones that are cycling down. Ones that I'll be honest, the ones with the worst battery.
Yeah.
So it's still working, but because it's plugged in for 9 out of 10 days, it'll live throughout the process, and the 2 hours the kids may use throughout the month is going to be fine.
Sure.
So
okay, thank you. Just a few more questions about the different definitions, which I know is something we were interested in seeing in policy. I have to say, I spent a lot of time with these definitions, and I sort of like started to get it, and then I became more confused. I ran this by a group of students. They found it pretty confusing. So I'm not really sure how this policy is, it's under a student, how this is going to be used by students. Because, for example, one of the issues that came up in policy was, were these devices, like, where do AirPods and earbuds and things of that sort fall in this policy? And I think the answer had to do something with Bluetooth speakers. It would be under that. I don't really know. And staff was going to go back and make that change. I don't see those listed in here. Maybe I'm missing
They're at
something.
the top of page B.
No, I'm talking about, I don't,
Thought you're looking for Bluetooth speakers.
no, okay, let me start over. So the issue that I was having is I was trying to understand the major categories of devices that our students are using. Those categories are Chromebooks. This is like my understanding of the categories. Chromebooks, personal laptops, they could be MacBooks or whatever brand, and then their earbud, AirPod, whatever they're using for listening. So trying to think about what are our students using, where do they fit on this on these lists, and how could they easily find the restrictions or what's allowable. So my question to Marco when we had this meeting was, what's going on with the earbuds? Like, are they allowed? Are they not allowed? Do we like them? Do we not like them? And the answer that we heard in policy was that, in fact, that they were really useful and they're being used in classes and we like them and they're used for testing, for world language, all these other things. So right now we don't have them listed in the definition, and in fact, they're being banned in the schools. So I kind of feel like there's a disconnect here in what's happening in policy and what's happening in practice, and I don't really understand. I'm not even advocating for AirPods or not AirPods. I don't really care. I just actually don't. I'm sorry. So earbuds, AirPods, whatever, like the wireless listening, whatever your brand is. So, what's been happening in the schools, it seems like, is they're saying now that they are no longer allowed, but students can purchase the wired I don't even know. I almost can't keep up with it, but I'm finding that this section, like, I appreciate the work that went into it, but also I find it wildly confusing. I feel like we can do better. We could improve this. I mean, it's just actually hard. Like, when I showed this to students, they couldn't figure out how to navigate the document because they can't figure out where their devices are listed on here. Even something like a MacBook, they were kind of arguing like, well, is this have, I'm not sure if mine has an embedded cellular modem. Does that mean it's allowed or not allowed? I mean, it's actually just very confusing. And yes, they know that a MacBook is a laptop, but I'm saying it's in multiple categories and it lists that it has to be embedded. I mean, there's language here that uses the word, I mean, I don't know how much you want me to go into this, but trying to find the other part. Oh my goodness. I mean, I don't even really even want to go page by page unless you want me to, but it's difficult to navigate this document. I don't really understand how it would be used by a student. There are a lot of questions about, I mean, even this is, I was thinking about the printers and I don't know how they're used. Like, are they Bluetooth? How do the students print to their printers? So are those, like, is that not allowed because it's Bluetooth? Like, I just,
The printers are on the network,
okay. So,
but the printers are not personal devices. Those are provided by the district, just
uh-huh,
like a Chromebook is given to them, just like a
yeah.
in a tech class, a desktop computer is they're
Yeah.
accessing.
I
So-
understand. I think that probably, like, I get the spirit of what this is trying to do. I don't know that that's what this document is doing. And,
Well, I also think that we're talking about students. I think if you asked 99% of the students don't look at the policies of the Board of Education either. So I think we're there to help interpret that in cases that there's some questions as well.
okay, so then I would just clarify to this board that I can't interpret it as an adult that's been on policy and sits on this board. It is difficult for me to interpret this as an adult with good reading comprehension skills. I find this to be confusing. So I mean, even like on page C, under Roman numeral 3, guidelines for cellular capable devices, I'm actually thinking that should probably say privately owned cellular capable devices. And the sentences that follow are actually pretty confusing. So I just feel like a little more time with this could be helpful. I mean, it's just, I don't think it's ready. I have questions about, you know, like we have for under prohibited uses, the policy committee had added language, which I thought was really great, around on page E, Roman numeral 5, letter A, elementary staff shall maintain screen-free settings during recess, snack time, and undirected time. You know, since then we've heard, or at least I've heard, that at least one of the middle schools, they're watching television during lunch there. So that wasn't something that sort of occurred to us to add any restrictions around middle school, but I would make that recommendation. Let's see, I mean, I have a lot of other notes. I mean, on page F, the last sentence under Roman numeral 6, letter A, the sentence, the superintendent or designee will collect all disciplinary action to ensure the policy and administrative regulations are being enforced consistently and with fidelity. I had recommended that we go into more detail on that about what type of data we're interested in seeing and at what frequency and how to receive it. So that's still missing from there. So I don't know, I feel like it needs a little bit of attention. And also, I'm not sure I agree with some of it, the way that it's written now, because I think that it doesn't really align with what we're doing. So yeah, that's all I have on that particular policy.
I guess Mrs. Maxon Kennelly, do you have any perspective on that?
A few things. I would say that in the policy meeting, we did not get any notes from you, Mrs. Guernsey, or Mr. Asa, and I would have tried to address those when we voted this out. So Mr. Asa and I had finished our discussion of it. We felt that we had, that everything, all of the concerns had been thoroughly addressed. And at that point, we felt, as Mr. Asa already just alluded to, that it was time to get the feedback from the full board, that the issues that you raised were not problems for Mr. Asa and myself. We felt that it was clear. We felt that it was a clear charge to staff. And so that both for the fact that questions we felt had been addressed and that we wanted, sort of similar to when we did with class size. When we brought that to the board, it's because we knew it wasn't a finished work, but we needed feedback. This, I believe, is a more polished policy by far than what we had done with class size. And we felt it was ready to be seen by the board. And if it was clear for the board, we were ready to recommend its passage. But that's exactly why it is here.
Mrs. Guernsey?
So I might have missed this, but maybe Mrs. Maxon Kennelly can help me understand then. What was decided about the AirPods then? Are they dangerous or are they allowed? Because I actually don't know.
They currently are not allowed. So we are looking to purchase for each of the schools the wired for educational purposes that they'll be able to use in class.
So that was part of this policy, was supposed to support language that said they were allowed. So what does this language read? I mean, you know, I'm not like here to trick anyone. I actually just don't see that in here. And that's like one of the basic technology pieces that our students were bringing to school. So,
Excuse me?
yeah, anyway, okay.
There was a question about why Bluetooth earpods are not allowed.
How would they utilize them without their phones?
Chromebook.
Okay, for what reason?
For testing purposes, for world language would be one of the major uses
Right, and
of
that's
them.
why we're going to provide them with, so that there's no other distractions within the classroom.
So you're purchasing earbuds for
Yeah, the
like
wired ones.
for
you see
every
the-
student and
Yeah, they're
wow.
they
Okay.
don't cost much. I
Oh,
mean,
all right. Well, that's great. So like 3,000. Okay.
All right, Mr. Lee.
Just to follow up on that, we've been purchasing, but obviously a student can still bring in their own beats that are wired and stuff like that. We're not preventing that, right? We're just saying on Bluetooth, AirPods, iPod, earbuds, and everything else. Student can come in, bring their headphones, as long as they plug into their Chromebook or whatever they have, we're good to go.
yeah, we really haven't had a lot of discussion around this in the last 7 days of school. You know, we implemented the regulations last Monday. Now it's a work in progress to see what needs to be tweaked, what may not need to be tweaked. It's early on in the process, like I said, but I think overall, again, you know, we would talk about it later on, but I think it's overall, it's been a really positive 7 days of school.
Ms. Fronte, you had your hand up earlier. Do you still want to comment on? You stayed, and I want to respect that.
Just because like they can connect to our computers, but I was also just gonna say that like I agree with that. We need them for school if we can't have the ones like that many students were bringing in, because I've been using them in many classes and some of my teachers do have like the wired headphones, but not all of them. And so we do work like just like watching a video, or for a world language I've used them. So I was just going to comment on that and say that that would be, I think, useful.
Thank you. Mr. Krasnov.
So I got a follow-up that I missed on my own starting question, and then if no one else has questions, I'll move on. On 513181D, in the high school level, number 2, devices must be both turned off and stored. Are we going back to they can just be stored wherever, which is what, again, I prefer, so.
Right. So
Just-
once again, that was a perfect example of if that specific line got tweaked in the future, we didn't want to have to bring the policy back up for that. So we know right now, and obviously we as a board voted to, the majority vote to get those pouches. That is our understanding going forward, would be the storage mechanism. But say a year from now, administration wanted to recommend a different method. Or what have you. So this way, we're not tweaking policy because we've made it too specific. We're saying they have to be stored. Keep in mind also that some students might be storing it in their cars. So it's the more prescriptive we get, then those are also the more rules we have to be sure to enforce. So we know we wanted it stored, but then the implementation of that we're leaving to staff.
I agree with that, and again, I have no problem with it just being stored. But if you have the middle school verbiage the same, and the high school the same, in my mind, you're negating the fact that they have to use the pouches that you guys bought. Now, I have no problem with that again, but that's how I read this. It just needs to be stored.
Right, but also that you've got two very, very different cultures. The middle schools have lockers, which again, it was our, that was a very critical part of this aspect of the policy for that line, was the fact that we had to make sure that they all had usable, lockable lockers, because no middle schoolers storing in a car. And so that's why the language was the same, but the understanding of how it would be implemented was actually quite different. But both of which are flexible for changes going forward as administration learns from the rollout of the policy.
But just, if I'm a student and I see this and it says stored and I have it stored in my bag, I am following your policy.
But keep in mind, there are regulations created by staff, which can be quite, so it's, it is a partnership. It is, both of those go hand in hand, and it is not appropriate for someone to say, well, but the policy used this vague word, regs can't get more specific. Well, of course, that's happening all the time. We give the big language, and then it's up to administration to operationalize it, and that does get far more specific.
Just a recommendation. I would be more, I would mirror as close as you could. If you want pouches, I would put something about the pouches in here. That's just my recommendation to change the policy that's before us.
Okay.
Again, I'm fine with it the way it is because I don't like the pouches. That's just my personal opinion. But in terms of policy, if you want to cover the pouches, I would put it in the high school because right now it mirrors the middle school, and middle school is a different
Yes, it is.
policy than the high school. So you got to differentiate it in some way, shape, or form, from my perspective.
Ms. Tracy?
I just wanted to reiterate what Mrs. Maxon Kennelly said. I understand what your perspective is, but in practice, we have many policies that have regs that go along with them. So I think she described the reasoning behind that. No one in here is specifying the exact method, because every time that method changes, you'd have to bring the policy back. Where it is written here, where it's stored, the regs mirror that, but they're specific. So it is procedurally how we've done it. And what we thought was the most appropriate, as we've done with almost all other policies.
Again, I completely get that. I'm just referring to the fact that the middle school and the high school are the same in the policy.
But the regs are different.
Correct. Should I move on, or do more people want to be on this policy?
On this policy? I mean, I guess at this point, well, if we're gonna keep talking about it, I think let's keep talking about it. Mrs. Jacobson?
Starting on A1, District Technology Resources. This is a student policy. So Mrs. Maxon Kennelly, do we issue cell phones and smartphones under 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 bullet points down to students?
I'm going to have to ask staff to come up on that. Again, things like the definitions, Mr. Taddy was responsible for, and I don't say that to pass the buck. I say that to indicate, I know that we do with staff, that there can be trips and such, but we weren't looking to create a separate policy, and we already have that for, I can't remember which
So
one it
yeah, I
is.
would recommend coming up because I'm going to have a lot of questions on these policies. So just my first question is, since this is in the student section, do we issue cell phones and smartphones to students?
We
No.
do not.
No, we do not.
Okay, thank you. Moving down to the next section, per Mr. Asa and Mrs. Maxon Kennelly's reference to the regulations, and I assume you're talking about the regulations that are up on the parent part of the website, of the district website? Because there's no regulation in our policy area, it's just what's on the FPS website.
Right, because at this point in time, what we have are cell phone regulations. There is no regulation that corresponds yet to this policy because this one is much broader.
Okay, so with that, then do you anticipate that reg would change then? Because the definition is different in that reg. It talks about personal electronic devices / cell phones. It's not just cell phones. So we anticipate that the reg will change.
I would assume so, yes.
Based on whatever passes from the policy. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
what is the source of your I'm going on page bottom of page B, guys, now. D, what is your source of the definition of generative AI? And does that match any state definition that exists in other legislation?
It's a similar definition to what's on CABE's definition for generative AI. And it's also a precursor because we started writing the actual AI policy. So we started using similar words to make sure that we were already defining this in this policy so that when we started talking about generative AI, it was already defined in a location.
Okay, so it's from CABE.
Part of it, yeah. Yeah.
Part of it you made up?
No, as in the CABE policy is a deeper policy. The main definition is
Okay.
from CABE, yeah.
Thank you. C, guidelines for cellular capable devices by grade level. This, I also had the same note in front of the word Mrs. Maxicanelli, the following grade level restrictions apply specifically to privately owned because you go in, the rest of this section is only about privately owned. It's not about district owned, right? This section is only in reference to privately owned.
Well, this section is for the cellular capable devices.
Right, which are
defined on page B.
Right, which is a subset of privately owned devices.
Correct.
Okay, so, all right, so again, just getting back to like clarity for other people, this section is for privately owned devices. Okay.
No, it is not. Just to be clear, because the privately owned devices includes things such as your laptop, and that's not something that we are asking to be prohibited and stored and turned off.
Thank you. Can you help me understand that other privately owned technological devices may be subject to different guidelines as determined by classroom teachers in school? What was that and what was that supposed to mean?
So that there could be a classroom teacher could say, we're not using Chromebooks today. I mean, there can be, I'm just making that up, Mr. Taddy. I'm sure you have more examples, but it's not that there can be no restrictions on those, but we're not looking to clarify those within the policy. This part, which of course gets for us, quite prescriptive in terms of disallowing something, does not necessarily encompass everything on the privately owned technological devices, but that's not to say that a classroom teacher or again, school administration couldn't have some restrictions there. But we're not dictating those in this policy.
Okay. The middle school exceptions, and this is for the high school on the next page as well. Just in the regulation, there is no exception at this point for special events with administrative approval, but it is in the policy. So can you just help us understand where that exemption came from?
Yeah, that was actually, I know Mrs. Flynn gave us one specific example of something where we might want to make an exception to that. And if you, for example, of course, you remember your high schoolers on the Fridays during Spirit Weeks, and that when they are dressed up, if there were certain events where we wanted to allow them to take photos. That was one example that she had heard of in another district, and we thought that, again, none of it is being allowed by policy, but it is giving administration the latitude in a certain circumstance. If there were, and I don't know if, I'm trying to remember some of the other examples we talked about in policy, because we went over that one. We were very close to wanting to strike that out. But we decided to go with the latitude. An author speaker comes and someone wants to get their picture taken with the author. I remember someone giving that example. Again, we were very close to just wanting to say no exceptions of any kind.
I just wanted to know what you were referencing.
So those were some of the things we thought of.
So for an example, we have something coming up at the high school in a couple of weeks that Dr. Hatzis has requested for the seniors that are participating, if they'll have access to their cell phones to be able to photograph themselves, since it is a milestone event during their senior year, which we're going to allow. Signing days for athletes, those kind of things came up already when we talked about putting them away in the pouches. So there will be those type of activities that students will be able to access their phone to be able to photograph themselves and memorialize those during their senior year.
Okay, thank you. Going on to letter D, access to district technology resources. So, Marco, just to be clear, A, B, C, this whole rest of this page only applies to privately owned devices.
Yes, that's correct. There's a few discussions in terms of security incidences that you could gauge into a technological device that's district owned. It's a general overview, but it's mainly talking about privately owned devices.
So everything on here doesn't apply to district technology resources, A through C.
I don't believe that's the case. The heading of district technology, we've had deliberately meant this to be all encompassing.
Yeah, I guess as I
Because
stated,
in the next sentence, Mrs. Maxon Kennelly, it just goes about resources through private devices.
Right, because bullet 3 on the district is the network and access to the internet, which might happen through the privately owned, but
Okay, so students accessing district technology resources through private devices must ABC. Right?
yes.
That doesn't apply to district.
Go ahead.
Mr. Marco, you can correct me, but the district devices already have their own network protocols in. So am I right in that we're not defining those here because the district devices already have those, but this is for, in this particular section with these 3, it's talking about if you have a private device accessing the network.
right, exactly. The point is that it's a general statement in terms of security incidences, device recommendations, but we are talking mainly about private devices because the standards that are set in this policy and others are already met by our devices. So it still stands that it is true for our devices as well, but in terms of this policy and what we're talking about and trying to make sure people understand the wording, it's talking about their privately owned devices.
Okay, and these, the administrative guidelines, in A, that's the acceptable use guidelines. Correct? That goes with internet.
Yes.
Okay, so those have to be changed because those conflict with all of these policies right now.
That's correct. We do have to go through those AR
Okay,
as
so
well.
all of that will be done before any of this gets operationalized, obviously, right? Because everyone signed the acceptable use guidelines for this year already, right?
That's a good point in terms of ensuring that we both update and communicate and have signed.
Right.
Yeah.
So if this gets passed now, that whole thing is going to have to be changed, and then we're going to have to reissue.
Well, in general, we would be reissuing, stating and showing the changes, and that's a general
It's
scenario.
going to be significant changes to that guideline. It's like it's 6 pages.
I agree. I haven't gone through that process yet since we're still working
Okay.
on, but
Okay, just in the
Yeah.
sidebar.
Yeah.
Okay, so on to the next page. I had the same question about screen-free time for middle school and high school. Is the theory here that because their phones are stored, that we don't need to worry about screen-free time during lunch, transition time, free periods, whatever? Is that the theory, why only elementary's in here?
I think we were in many ways operating off of situations that we knew were taking place. And that's where this language derived from. I, echo Mrs. Guernsey's point that, we never talked about middle school because it didn't occur to us that the TVs were on.
Because forget
So-
like at Chromebooks or cell phones, like it could be like smart boards, it could be, it's, all these types of things, meaning are we saying that in downtime, lunchtime, free period time, that really it should be a screen-free environment?
Well, no, I mean, for example, if there's a study hall where we did not discuss putting into policy that teachers now need to monitor what they're doing in the study hall. Because that is in theory downtime. Hopefully they're using it for their academic success and support. But that said, if a student during March Madness has pulled something on, and I'm sure this has never happened, where they're checking out the score of a basketball game, where you don't have anything in policy that is prohibiting that in terms of the unstructured time and using it. So we really were focused on hearsay a little bit, but knowing that that screens had been used
Training
for a whole
outside,
class.
They can't go on the playground. We don't want them on their Chromebooks.
That's correct.
Can I just add to this? So there were many instances which appear to have been since resolved prior to us putting this in here by the building principals, but mostly at the elementary schools, exactly like you said, on a rainy day or at snack, the smart boards or the new, I'm not sure what you call them, were being used to play things that, you know, versus the intent of this was to encourage when the kids are on the carpet that they're talking to each other and snack, not watching a video.
I love it. I just wanted to.
And we did not go down the road beyond elementary on that. And we kind of, I do remember early on, you know, toying with it, but not hearing that it was that big of a problem. We were actually hearing many instances of it at the elementary level.
Dropping down to C, privacy violations, sharing personal identifying. There can be lots of assignments that have to do with sharing about your own self, your reflections, your family, my community and me lessons, et cetera, et cetera. We're not talking about, I just want to be careful that we're not hitting into like assignments that might require some of these things that you're calling a privacy violation.
No, agreed. And in the context of these other violations, it's in line with that as in terms of how you're sharing and where you're sharing. In that example, you're sharing an assignment with a teacher
Right.
or with another peer. While as in this terms, we're talking about a deeper share, maybe an email out to the public.
That's not what
or
it says. It doesn't say that. It just says personally identifying information about self and others. Like every paper, I assume, has like your name on it, right?
That's correct.
Okay,
Yes.
so maybe there should be some clarifying language, Mrs. Maxon-Kennelly, that,
Okay.
you know, that just makes it clear that this is not inclusive of things that are like pertaining to an assignment. You do an interview, you know, I'm thinking of the interview.
Mhm.
Do you know what I mean?
Yep, I got it.
That is disassociated from.
Thank you.
Yeah, sure. Going down to the behavioral violations, I also had a problem with number 5. Because you have not, either in this or in the AI policy told me what's authorized, I don't know how we can have a behavioral violation of something that hasn't been defined.
And unfortunately, I don't have the regs memorized. And so even there, even in the regs of the AI policy, there's a degree of vagueness in terms of what's appropriate use and what is inappropriate use. So
Okay, so I'm very, very
no, I
sorry.
agree with you. I agree. And my apologies for the oversight that they were not included in this packet, because then I could reference those. But I would only say that even there is still a degree of vagueness because, you know, tomorrow it's going to be different. So we're trying to be encompassing with that. Yes, we did. So
We just
again,
need to be careful with behavioral violations of something that we can't even define ourselves. And if we're going to be disciplining students on something, if we don't know what it means, I don't know how we would expect our students to comply with that. So I understand the intent here, and believe me, when
Yep.
we get to the other policy, I'll address some of that. But in this policy, I don't know how we grapple with that, because I know what you're trying to do. It just makes me nervous if we don't have an understanding of what that actually means. So again, in the student section, Marco, under E5, do we expect that like a third grader getting a Chromebook understands what a violation of federal or state law is? How would they understand what that means?
I would guess a third grader is not looking at this policy.
Well, I know, but this
Just-
is pertains to students.
Right.
So how do we educate them on that and just making sure that they, like, how are we going to operationalize that?
Well, I can't speak specifically to federal and state law for kindergartners and younger ages of that nature, but in terms of proper use and safe use and
Yep.
understanding, that is taught from the beginning in terms of even before devices are introduced, just in general in the classroom. So, and they are taught about federal and state law in general. But how it pertains in this circumstance, I don't have a good answer for how to educate a child on proper state
Okay.
and federal
Just
issues of
sparked
that
my
nature.
my theory. Sorry, guys, I have a lot on these, so we're gonna be here. F. Mrs. Maxon Kennelly. Middle of the paragraph where you talk about privately owned technological devices in any manner inconsistent with this policy will not be tolerated and result in progressive disciplinary actions. So, three things came to my mind. The restorative practices policy we recently passed and referenced in our school climate plan 5114.12. 5114 student suspension expulsion policy that we already exist, and then the different tiered things that are in the regulation around the cell phone regulation that's up on the website. So in this policy, none of those were referenced. So which one of those would rule in this policy?
I would argue that the regulations that get created for this policy will be, we deliberately use the phrase progressive disciplinary action because among other things, there is the expectation that a first offense does not equate in its penalty to the fourth offense.
Of course.
So, this, once again, the wording being vague because that's not just about cell phones either. It's about, everything that is in the policy. So it was just the expectation that it's not a one strike and you're out kind of mood or tone to this, but that it be progressive and also that it might end up being changed in the regulations for the various infractions. Obviously, we're mostly thinking of cell phones, but that's not all the policy is about. But I guess I would argue that it's the regs for this policy that would be the guiding principle. And I don't know if Mr. Testani wants to add to that.
Yeah.
I do, because there could be instances where a first offense does result in severe disciplinary action.
Right.
For example, somebody's passing around an inappropriate photo of another student.
Mhm.
That is considered child pornography. That will not be, hey, mom,
Mhm.
first offense. That's going to be a suspension. It's going to result in an arrest, most likely, and it's also going to result in an expulsion. Doesn't matter if it's the first offense or the fourth offense. So I think you don't want to tie the hands on things that could be severely inappropriate and violations.
No, I understand that, and we put that language in the regs, in the draft, did you have that in there, but we also have other policies, so I guess my general feedback is to look at those other policies where they are appropriate. I understand your example, but that's gonna be, right? Not, hopefully, knock wood, not the primary examples here. How does this intersect with the policies that we already have on restorative practices? Because we just passed that, right? That's about discipline. And then we already have a suspension and expulsion policy as well.
I think there's a misunderstanding that restorative practices doesn't result in discipline as well.
I'm not saying that isn't.
No, I know, but I think for the public, I know you understand it, but for the public, there's a belief that restorative means that disciplinary actions are foregone, and that's not true. Restorative practices is you can still give out the discipline, and then the relationship is then restored so that we can move on in an appropriate manner.
Okay. Just my feedback when the regs are made to make sure we're not conflicting with other policy, that's all, or try to reconcile those. That's all I had on this particular one, Mr. Peterson.
Anyone have any further comments on policy 5131.81? This is inappropriate. This is meaty policy. It's appropriate to have an in-depth discussion about it. I guess I would recommend it at this point that members with very specific issues forward those to the chair of the policy committee, and we can go from there.
Thank you so much. And again, that's part of why Mr. Ace and I voted to bring it forward to the board, is that a lot of some of these questions were not on topics that we were talking about anymore in policy at all. So this is very helpful. I appreciate it. I don't know that everything will result in a language change, but I've written the notes, and so I very much appreciate the board input.
All right, so I'm gonna reverse my earlier plan based on things I've heard around the table. We'll go policy by policy. I think some of them will be uncontroversial, and some may spark further discussion. Comments on policy 3516, safe and secure school facilities, equipment, and grounds. Mrs. Jacobson.
Just one really quick question. Under 2, just that change there, can you explain to me the difference between a command center and an incident command organization?
As I recall, that was, these are, we did ask about that. These are the federal terms and thus the change in language.
Is it generally accepted plain language that is used for this?
That's all I had on that one, Mr. Peterson.
Any more comments on policy 3516? Moving on, policy 3516.13, risk management policy statement. Any comments or questions? No, moving on, policy 3541.35, bus safety emergency procedures. Mrs. Jacobson.
The second paragraph, Mrs. Maxon Kennelly, where it says the district shall ensure the bus contractor shall hold a quarterly safety meeting. This is red language, so I assume this is new. I just had a quick question. That's 4 times a year. Is that included in our transportation? Maybe this is to Mr. Testani. Is this in our contract, or is this possibly in a cost that we're mandating here?
No, it's part of the contract.
It is. Okay.
Yes.
All right. Thank you for that.
Ms. Jacobson, can I just?
Oh, I'm
intervene?
sorry. Yes.
I just, and the question I did ask was, is this actually in practice? And it was confirmed that it is.
And 4 times a year, every year is required for 100% of the drivers. I mean, it would make sense to me, maybe that new people coming on board, but that is what where we want this to be 4 times a year for all people.
Correct.
Okay. Did you have a follow-up?
Mr. Lee.
I'm assuming bus accident with children on board. When the bus,
Wait, can you place me on the page, Mr. Lee?
oh, I'm sorry. Wait.
Are we,
What page do you want?
Oh, no, I'm there. Okay. I thought I was off a page.
3541.35A.
35A on that first page, sorry. The bus accident with children on board. I'm assuming the bus driver that calls 911, they notify the school or dispatch, because I noticed the school's not, no one contacts the school.
Come join us, Mr. Papa George.
The driver is not notifying the school, no.
911, the dispatch would, someone at the dispatch
The
will
di-
notify.
Right.
The driver notifies 911 and the driver also notifies their dispatch center that they were in an accident. Their dispatch center reaches out to our transportation office and we make all the notifications to the schools. We get notice out to parents. I don't want to say control, but we want to know that the information going out is accurate. So that's why we make that decision and we make the notifications out.
So when does the administration find out there's a bus accident with the children on board, if that child is hurt?
Within minutes.
911
We don't want to
first.
be, we don't want to
No.
be notified before 911. We want
Right.
911 to be notified. Then they're,
First.
and the dispatch center, and then we are notified immediately after by the dispatch center.
Okay,
So usually within minutes of the accident occurring.
thank you.
Continuing on, I assume the policy 3514, that's the one that's being deleted, is because this bus accident with children on board is being inserted into this policy, but there are regs with the other one. So you're referencing regs. I assume the regs will be updated with a new number as well. Yeah. Okay.
That was our assumption as well.
Okay. All right. Sorry.
Mr. Peterson?
Oh,
Sure, go ahead.
Well, sir. Just a quick question. Is there any signage or anything that tells someone other than the bus driver what to do on our buses? Because what if the bus driver's incapacitated? Is there instructions posted anywhere for kids to know to, I'm assuming a lot of kids know to call 911, but it might be good to have something posted. I want to say, I would have to check. I know I've seen on buses where it says an emergency call 911, but I can't say for sure it says it on the school buses at this point. Okay, thank you.
Ms. Jacobson, you still have the floor?
You can continue.
I'm done on this one.
Any further questions on policy 3541.35? Ms. Raisa.
Yeah, if you, Mr. Krasnoff, I believe it's in the 3rd paragraph of page A. It does talk about the biannual drills. So I believe it is during that time that the students are, and I did ask, do these drills actually always happen? And the answer was yes. So I was pleasantly surprised. But I believe in that time, it does address exactly what you're talking about.
All right, moving on, policy 4118 point of the conduct policy with the complicated numbers. Ms. Jacobson.
Sorry. Just can someone help me understand the difference between appropriately dressed and professionally dressed in accordance with their position? And who's deciding that? Is this like the PE teacher gets one look and, I mean, I just, I don't really know what this means.
We asked
Yeah,
just
that-
as
that-
many
that-
times
that
for
same
this,
question was
so it
asked in
did come up in
policy. Yeah.
policy.
Sorry, I just,
Not sorry at all. That it's a tough, it could be a potentially divisive issue. So no,
well, right, like we're not getting into like,
Mrs. Ingram.
Good evening.
Hi.
Ingram, Executive Director of Human Resources.
hi,
Hi, how are you?
good, how are you?
So it was a debate between appropriately dressed and professionally dressed. And so when we reached out to the attorney, the proper term he thought would be professionally dressed in terms of accordance to your position. So like you were saying, a PE teacher wouldn't come
In a suit and
hopefully
tie
in a
per se,
mini
yeah.
skirt and high heels.
Okay.
Right.
But this is,
The policy committee did ask Ms. Ingram to get an attorney opinion on this.
doesn't mean I still don't
Unfortunately,
feel that it's very subjective.
well,
We're-
and unfortunately, if someone wears blue jeans and a t-shirt to work, there's not very much that can be done
Okay,
in the
all right,
current
I just
state,
didn't want to start
regardless
getting into
of
that.
whatever policy is
I mean, I just think about our
approved.
kids, like we have those things in handbooks that are like nothing that has like substance or violence depicted, you know, things like, I mean, but I'm thinking about students, right? Not grown adults, but in my mind, this is probably a little bit of common sense, but I just wanted to have the conversation because it makes me a little uncomfortable.
The attorney was very specific and for us not to put any type of
Oh, I'm not
clothing within the
suggesting that. I
policy.
just wanted
Okay.
to hear your thoughts on it and I don't want to go down the like,
Yeah.
you know, clothing police wars. So anyway, that's it, Mr. Peterson. Thank you. I just wanted to get that on the
Any further
record.
board comments on the conduct policy? Seeing none, we'll skip ahead to policy 6114, emergency and disaster preparedness.
You just skipped right over that.
Oh, we
I know,
spent plenty of time on it.
joking. I'm joking.
Ms. Jacobson, do you have any comments or questions?
Not on this one.
All right, moving along. Policy 6114.1, fire emergency drills. It looks like we just are changing the title
correct.
in this.
Or taking out headmaster, right?
Correct, as a superseded title.
Oh, okay.
How about policy 6141.321, student internet use? Mr. Krasnoff.
Thank you. Start on B, where it says purpose and scope. Number 2, district makes a good faith effort to protect its students from exposure to internet materials that are harmful, inappropriate, and explicit. I kind of want to bring this back to the AI question. If we're making sure all the technology is coming from the school that's in the school, wouldn't we be monitoring what type of AI is being used as well?
Mr. Taddy, you might as well come up.
There you go. That's what I'm
Well-
asking.
Is the thrust of your question that students may be able to create some of this content with
Or
tools
just
that you're giving them?
access.
No, it's more to try to help define this better and maybe help define the other policy better and maybe help define the AI. It's kind of all 3 policies together. If we're blocking most of the AI except for someone trying to plagiarize or cheat, then you might be able to define it a little bit better in the other policies.
Mr. Taddy.
Just to be clear here, in terms of, we're talking about definitions of using that AI or any tool by that matter versus whether it should be allowed to be used, right? It seems to me you're talking about the creation of
No,
content.
well, when we had the presentation the other day about AI, I was under the impression from some of the questions I asked that we were going to specifically limit to certain types of AI that are constrained, for a lack of a better term. Obviously, AI is not really constrained, but monitored to an extent and doesn't allow for certain things. You know, once in a while it may get through, but we try to limit stuff like misinformation campaigns, stuff like that. If we're doing that, then how would something be unauthorized? I'm just trying to understand the unauthorized AI use and you know, what we're doing here according to make a good faith effort. Are we blocking that stuff that is then eliminating the unauthorized use besides maybe plagiarizing or, you know, cheating or whatnot, like a calculator?
Can I give him an example?
Well,
I
sure.
think I know where he's going with this.
Mr. Lee, go ahead.
So, for example, in AI, if you use Gemini right now, I can say, show me a picture of the Mona Lisa, right? That's fine for our class. But then how can we block, show me a picture of Mona Lisa in a bikini?
Kind of what I was going after. Not quite. Yeah.
The specific example, but
Yeah.
but Mr. Daddy.
Yeah, so each of the different software that we do allow or will allow, there's certain constraints that we, on a good faith effort, hope that these providers are adhering to. Those filters from either a school level or just a general use case. For example, Magic School, what is a tool that we are using in the secondary school level, does adhere to heavy constraints in terms of what is used, what's filtered, what's allowed in terms of generation. Not to say that someone couldn't still use that in some way, shape, or form in an inappropriate way.
What would an unauthorized, inappropriate way look like under these programs that we have these restraints on? That's kind of what I'm asking.
I think a good example could be in terms of cheating or plagiarism. There's always going to be certain scenarios that are a gray area in terms of these tools, because in some way, shape, or form, they're used to help create study guides, but you could also flip that in terms of an essay.
So to that point, could we define it as cheating or plagiarism instead of unauthorized use? That's
Yeah,
kind of what I'm getting at.
agreed.
Are those the two main things that would be unauthorized use? I'm just trying to help for all these policies to define it better, because to me, it's very loosely defined, and I hate things that are open for interpretation. That's just
But
my
I think
opinion.
what Mr. Lee mentioned, show me a picture of the Mona Lisa, authorized. Show me of the picture of the Mona Lisa nude, unauthorized.
I'm hoping it wouldn't, we have restraints that don't show a naked Mona Lisa.
99% of the time, correct. I don't think that would make it through. It would get flagged. But I think if the child then is continually to ask for those kind of things, then that's when an adult needs to step in and intervene with some conversation around that. That, because some kids will just keep trying to find workarounds.
Okay. Mr. Krestoff, if I can ask, looking at the wording in 2, and you're talking about potentially limiting it to like plagiarism and cheating.
No, you'll understand when I get to the next part, which is B on the next page. D.
Go ahead, that's fine.
School administrators, teachers, staff may monitor materials to ensure compliance with content standards. Again, I would love to define.
I apologize, Ms.
content
Krestoff, where are you?
6141321D, the top
Oh,
of it,
D.
B, monitoring.
Flew right past C.
Sorry, I was trying to make a point between the last one and this one. And then also going back to the last policy with technology and the AI policy. To me, they all kind of go together. We don't really define what content standards are. And I just have concerns, and I understand you want to leave it very gray for interpretation down the road, but there's got to be a little bit more specific definition on all of these that we can do versus unauthorized content standards.
Mr. Teddy, can you speak to content standards? This is at the top of page D, under letter B.
Yeah, I mean, to be clear, this is in terms of student internet use. So we are kind of getting back to, there is a generative AI policy as well that would go into more specifics about generative AI. So in this scenario, when we're talking about school administrators looking into the monitoring of said content, it's going to be up to the actual standard of that level or that classroom or that component or that assignment. I think the content standard will differ depending on what we're talking about.
So
in terms of definitions, I think there's a lot of other policies talking about what standards are for content.
exactly, that's my point. In all these policies, we need to define the standards better. Just like was just mentioned, that they refer to the other policies for the standards. If we don't have the standards in the other policies, we're not defining the policy for everyone to follow.
And I don't want to downplay it. We spent a
No,
lot
I
of
get
time
it.
talking about this because there's a scenario where, especially with AI, what appropriate use is will be drastically different from an English class to a history class, or in terms of a study guide versus a creation tool for something. I think they're very different, and the same tool can be used in both a positive and negative way, which could be said for a lot of the applications and tools that we have today, and not just AI. So in this scenario, I don't know how much detail we'd be going into specifically for content standards. We'd have to have a litany of pages going into every possible other policies breakdown of what those content standards are going to be.
Okay. For me, it was more the cheating, plagiarizing, stuff like that. To me, makes a lot of sense to define. Even if there's other stuff on top of that, you want to leave it a little looser after that. I think being more prescriptive here is going to only benefit everybody. That's the only big suggestion I have for all of them.
Yes, Superintendent Testani, I don't know if you have any comment on kind of a loosely versus tightly constructed definition of content standards, and what operationally would be more valuable or tie your hands more.
I mean, I would like to keep it open-ended because if we're going to list everything, it could get quite lengthy as to what is inappropriate for, you know, a seventh grader. And for some folks, it could be open to interpretation as well, depending on, you know, what parents allow at home. I mean, but we could give some examples of some of the content standards that, and I think it's mentioned, I saw it, where it talked about in content violations, access or process to proxy sites, pornographic or other inappropriate materials, explicit text or files. I think I mean, we can expand on that a little bit. You know, foul language, you know, illegal drugs, illegal, I guess, and legal drugs, so to speak, now that marijuana is legal in the state of Connecticut for recreational use for adults. I mean, we could give some examples, but
I imagine whatever list you come up with would have to be including but not limited to.
correct.
And so because there's always going to be something that it's not anticipated by a list.
Correct. So we could look at to see, you know, if there's any recommendations on that from Shipman or from CABE, where the lawyers have gone through this with a little bit more intentionality. But I think this internet use for students is not new. I think what you're asking for is, how does AI fit into this?
And that's really more.
Since that's the new piece.
More where it comes in, and I'll bring it up again when we get to the AI policy. It was just a theme through these three policies that I saw, and if we're going to tie them all together, for me, it makes a lot of sense to have them as tied together as possible because they all wrap into technology. So when we get there, I'll tie it back again. Thanks.
Mr. Asa.
Yeah, I know, just to Mr. Krasnoff, but I mean, obviously, this is something that you're interested in and passionate about, which I deeply respect. So to Mrs. Maxon Kennelly's point and Mr. Peterson earlier, if you have, you know, specifics and suggestions, if you could get those to the chair of the policy committee, I think that would be very beneficial. Because I don't think people want to try and guess what you're getting at, and no one wants to dismiss what you're getting at. So any help you could
It's
give.
just mainly the plagiarism and cheating, I think, should be defined in it. I think that's a big thing we can all sit here and say is a huge concern with the AI these days, is being able to create documents and cheat if people want to.
And I will say that walking out the door, I will be emailing to get the copy of the regs so that everyone has it in hands tomorrow. And maybe once you look at that may or may not satisfy or give you the definition or the slightly greater degree of substance to this understanding, or it may just say, entirely falls short or what have you, but before sending the language, take a look at that, and then that might help you say, here's what I think is needed. But again, you know, we're happy to take a look at it again, and I've written down where your hesitations are, but knowing what to do with it, I'm a little bit less certain. Not that we won't try.
Is that it, Mr. Krasnoff? Mrs. Guernsey?
Maybe this is still on, sorry. In addition to the regs, or maybe when you use the word regs, you mean this, there was this like info sheet. It was like a one pager, but there were also supposed to be additional regs. So is it just the one pager you're talking about? Okay, all right. It's a nice one. You'll enjoy it. But there also are going to be additional, more detailed guidelines, and there are a whole bunch of other pieces that were supposed to accompany this. Not for AI.
Not for AI,
Oh, I
because
thought it was
again,
for
it
AI
looks very different from our normal regs, but that's what staff is using.
Okay, I thought there was an additional piece. Okay, thanks.
Gibson?
Just a quick process question, Mrs. Maxon Kennelly. This policy already exists, but it's all in red. And I did try to go back and, I know that it seemed like a lot of it was just reorganized, but I'm just gonna make a request if possible. I don't know, not to be difficult, but if the current student internet use policy, like this first paragraph that's in red here, that's all black, like that already is existing language, like it's not red language, right? Is there, if just, I'm not asking you to redline the whole thing, because it seems like it was reorganized, but I am asking what was in that policy, our existing policy, that was at least stricken and like not included anymore.
And so we deliberately, as a policy committee, because at first, Mr. Taddy was trying to do some pretzels to give us
understand.
exactly that.
I understand.
And ultimately, we had liked the structure of the use of technological devices as that strict outline format. And so finally, what we said to our instruction to Mr. Taddy was scrap it, give us something that's organized in the similar vein of outline, headings, easier to follow. And so
Is there anything not in this policy that is in that one?
I can go back and take a
I-
look at that,
so
unless
actually-
Mr. Taddy can do it offhand.
Yeah, so I can't word for word breakdown. We can actually send you essentially in the policy meeting, the first 3 policy meetings, we actually did make changes to this reg.
This isn't a reg.
Sorry, I apologize. This policy,
Uh-huh.
we made changes to the policy, red line specifics, all the
Yeah.
changes. And then when we redacted and cleaned up the whole process of actually the formatting, so that's the big change, because essentially it's the whole thing could almost
I
be
guess my
redlined.
kicking the question to you, is there anything in the existing policy that didn't make its way into this one?
There's a few things that were changed, yes. A few
Okay.
things were removed, a few things were added.
If we could, I don't need a red line, and I know it was a pretzel and all of that, but just some sort of notification of what was changed or not included. Something, yeah, like,
Yeah.
it's a long policy, so I don't want to make you do that. Just what are the key things that were not included with or different in this one?
Understood.
So I don't have to do the.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay,
Yeah,
awesome.
the beauty, it's actually an enclosure on the policy meeting too, so it's publicly available.
Yeah.
So we'll just share that link for you.
Again, we had tried to work through the existing,
I get
and
it.
that just wasn't working.
It's a long policy.
Just to be clear, though, I think Mrs. Jacobson is only asking for the differences,
Yes.
not all of those previous things. Marco, I think just
yes.
what, is there anything in there that didn't make it in here?
And it, or
And-
what
or vice
changed?
versa, yes.
Yeah, like a definition or something, right? All right, moving on to C. Required uses. I'll wait till you get there, but number 4, I'm really struggling with this, Mrs. Maxon Kennelly, so help me understand it. Teachers may designate specific device types and screen time usage for students.
We really didn't discuss that much. This was staff request recommendation, and we didn't have a problem with it. But again, that's why we're here before the full board to get other feedback.
All right, before it's 2 weeks from now, I'd like to understand what does that mean, designate screen time usage? So I don't, do you have, I don't know, sorry, Mrs. Maxon Kennelly, do you know what that's supposed to mean? That's just a very concerning.
Well, in general, the device types and the Agile sentence is meant for specific classes that need specific types of devices. So a good example could be that they may at the high school level have their own device, but we're telling them to use a Chromebook in this particular setting because of what the teacher's using, what software they're running. And it could be a graphics class where, although they have a Chromebook and they brought their own MacBook,
Or
you have
graphing
to use,
calculator, things like that, right?
right.
But what about the screen time?
I believe it's in terms of when they should be using the screen in that class for, with that specific device.
I might suggest then, if that is the case, that this be clarified to be something exception due to an assignment or something, because it's written very broadly. And it makes it seem like different classrooms might have different things going on in terms of screen time and devices. So wait, if I don't know what's in your brain and I'm just picking up this policy, that's how it reads.
Understood.
You know what
Yeah.
I'm saying? So maybe it can be clarified.
Well, I'm unclear because for me, the teachers may designate screen time usage, meaning I, as the teacher, can say, close your Chromebook. We're not using these anymore. So I'm genuinely not getting what is unclear with that one.
Would something like as necessary for coursework, just some little addition at the end?
And you don't have to make a change, I'm just questioning what it was about. Dropping down to on the bottom of the page under no expectation of privacy, number 2. This says district technology resources are subject to search at any time. And I just want to rectify that with the previous policy on technological devices that had a different, more kind of search and seizure language to it around the, the reasonable in scope, reasonable suspicion, all of that is in the use of technological devices for search. But in this one, you do say subject to search at any time. I'm sorry, 6, the other one? Okay, sure. 5131.81, the letter F. And it might be because you're saying there's a higher standard to search a private device than there is a public device. I just don't want to cause confusion that in this policy, we are applying more of like the civil rights language to that, right? Around search and seizure. And in this policy, we're just saying it anytime.
Understood. I will say that I believe that is a scenario where the wording was what it was prior, and that was left.
So would you say, do you see an issue between having different languages around searches in different policies?
I'd have to spend more time on that.
These are two different classes of devices,
That's
though.
what I'm saying.
Yes.
I just want to make sure that we don't create, that this is how the committee and everyone wants it to be, that one policy says one thing and another policy says another.
Understood.
Okay.
I can state that in general, when looking through this and actually how we're thinking about what this means, I think it reads as in a physical item, while as what it really means is the usage of the network in terms of what they're doing on that scenario. So
Wait, you're talking about like search engines?
it's because this is the internet use policy, so we're really talking about the usage of a device, and it happens to be a resource of ours. We have the
So
ability
this
to.
does not refer search of the actual device in the context of a search.
Exactly. The context for this is not necessarily that we're talking. We could be searching the device per se because we do have access to this
Because
device.
it said the no expectation of privacy section, so I don't know.
What's the idea? So in terms
let
of
you guys
emailing or searching, that, what do we have
I
instead
meant
of,
this-
what do we have instead of Gaggle now?
We have Beacon.
So,
through GoGuardian.
that is searching every email you send and it's getting screened. And that has nothing to do with whether there's reasonable suspicion related to suspected violation. Everything is goes through
can
that
you just
screen.
Clarify that 2 is not in reference to that type of search.
Thank you.
Obviously, my eyes read things in a different way.
Mr. Krasnov?
Is that part of something the students are aware of and sign with the laptops?
In general, the AUP in terms of the acceptable use policy does go over this, as well as the younger children, especially the elementary. And I did actually push this out at the secondary level this year as well, about the general use case, the proper use, what's allowed, what isn't allowed. as well as in terms of proper use from a physical side as well. So,
And I mean, like, they know, for lack of a better term, Big Brother's watching. Like, if you search for a site, even if it's an accident, it's gonna get flagged.
yes.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure they're aware of that. Thank you.
Mrs. Jacobson? Any more comments on student internet use policy? All right, seeing none, going on to policy 6141.3273, use of artificial intelligence. Any board questions or comments? Mr. Krasnoff, you have your hand up. Just for
Real quickly, again, circling back, the concerns with the generative AI and how we define it, what it is. And my other thing is, do we maybe want to add something about the AI to our plagiarism and cheating that's defined elsewhere in other policies?
I don't understand that point. I mean, plagiarism is plagiarism, so I'm unclear. It's the means for doing so. I don't know if have that defined in, I'm not positive off the top of my head. I don't believe we've defined plagiarism and the means for getting it in other policies. I don't think so. It might be in student handbooks, but I'm not positive about that.
Mrs. Jacobson?
All right, I'm going to try to. I understand that this is a really complicated thing for you guys to try to write. All right, so let me just start with that as we all try to wrap our arms around this. I'm going to go through it just because this is what I have to work off of, Mrs. Maxon-Kennelly, but I hope that this might take back for another look, and I'll provide, and I'm happy to provide, as Mr. Asa suggested, any recommendations that I feel are better. So I'm just going to start with the first paragraph in the second sentence where it says, this policy establishes guidelines for the use of generative AI to balance educational value with appropriate regulation. And I'm not being critical. I'm just saying I don't see the guidelines for use in this policy. It says it establishes.
Right, and I guess it was more, it establishes the philosophy that will then create the guidelines. So I hear your point.
Okay. And then to balance educational value with appropriate regulation. That sounds great. Not sure I know what it means yet. So not really sure what that looks like yet. Response, I'm going to jump down to A, under general provisions, educational purpose. Last sentence. We recognize the impact of generative artificial intelligence and other related technology tools. I don't know can you share what you meant by we recognize the impact? What does that impact mean to the committee or in this policy?
It kills me sometimes. So I guess in many ways, I think we were taking from that much of what you saw in the presentation. It's here. It is being used. It can be used productively. It's because obviously this is in the instruction policy. So this is no longer the student policy. So again, this is also for staff as well. And that idea of there are productive ways that our staff is being trained in being able to use it and even use it with their students, not just to aid them in their lesson work and in their assignment work, but also in their instruction work. So
maybe that word impact is what I'm getting hung up on rather than because this paragraph seems to be getting at what you're saying.
Yep.
I don't want to use the word like the presence of, or existence, but I'm struggling with impact because I'm not sure we understand what that is yet. And
I think what you just said sounded good, productive use. Recognize the productive use.
Well, the reason I like the word impact is because it can be both positive and negative.
Yeah.
And so that we philosophically recognize this, it is impactful. And it is up to us then to, work within create those guidelines, have a philosophy towards its use, and thus so much of this being as vague as it is.
Do the guidelines exist already?
Yes.
Okay.
That again is the additional handout that you will be receiving by tomorrow.
Okay, so when I get to this next section, maybe this is all in those guidelines.
Yep.
So, so the Department of Administrative Services has a website, as the state grapples with some of this AI that is specific for schools. Policy outlines the risks in different areas. So this next paragraph, I appreciate this one sentence. And this is just my impact. This is just my input. I feel like for each of these areas, there should be a built out paragraph like responsible and ethical use, identifying and mitigating bias, promoting transparency, ensuring the appropriate. So each of those areas, those are all big things in AI. And I can send this to you, Mrs. Maxon Kennelly. So we also had the presentation where risks were presented to this board. So we were all put on notice of those existing. And again, I don't know what's in the guidelines. I would feel a lot better about this if we didn't just cheerlead around this policy, which I did feel a little cheerleadery about, but we were acknowledging some of those risks that we were presented with and that exist on the Department of Administrative Services website around things like the SEL issues. Bias, which is things like, making predictions about people, class placements, grading, things like that. Inaccuracy, intellectual property, and the plagiarism issue that Mr. Krasnov has brought up, and then legal things. These are the buckets in which I have concerns. And I don't know, we don't want to put it in here. We don't have to, but I felt a little uncomfortable with how it was saying that we are like rah-rah, just, a little bit cheerleadery around this without, as a board, grappling with some of the more difficult topics. And policy, but I strongly feel that we should acknowledge some of these risks and how we're going to take steps to protect them in Fairfield. So I'm not done, Mr. Lee. So I wanted to raise that to you as a committee. That had been talked about. I personally feel we have a responsibility to talk about some of the things that haven't been defined here yet, that are able to be defined and are known today. Some things may come in the future, but we know bias, kids having relationships with AI, grading, not putting what systems you talked about in our presentation about how you were only going to allow certain platforms. That should be in here, like only their language. There are other policies that have language around only administrative approved platforms may be utilized in Fairfield Public Schools, right? Like getting a little clarity around some of this. And again, maybe it's in the guidelines that I don't have. So that is that paragraph. Really important paragraph, but it's only one sentence. So that's just my drafting any of this right now.
Again, so that then I'll just wait. Once you get those guidelines, see what that addresses in terms of mitigating your concerns and where you feel that there's something woefully short, then that's what we'll need to know.
Okay.
I don't want to promise you the world is about to be delivered to you. I'm putting a lot of pressure on these guidelines. I'll only say that aside from some formatting topics that, that we came up with, even in their vagueness, we thought that it was a very good starting point. And especially because we're getting it from Matt Mervis, it's also something that it wasn't just our staff trying to make it up all on their own. It was, it was kind of some tried and true. It was absolutely workshopped with students and staff. And so we really felt pretty strongly that it was a very good starting point. But that said, take a look and then I'll be looking for any other feedback. By the way, Mrs. Jacobson, I don't know if you want talking to.
Am I sorry? Sorry. Last paragraph, last page on B, board commitment. The appropriate use of AI to support student learning outcomes and equip students with the skills and dispositions needed for success in the digital age. That had me, we're going to use AI to teach students dispositions. what dispositions were referenced in that?
For me, disposition is, because I'm sure you can guess what my view is of AI and how very little it's creeping into my classroom to the best of my ability. But this idea of disposition, it's partially recognizing what the tool is supposed to be for and what it's not, which is absolutely that I remember in that side-by-side chart of the guidelines you're about to get, that it does clarify Fairfield Public Schools' position on what this should be doing and how it's an aid and not a replacement for learning, et cetera. And equip students with skills. I would have said, for me, it would have been an attitude toward. So that's how I read that.
Mr. Lee?
Yeah, with this topic, I think it's important that, especially in this situation, hearing what we've been hearing in the past, I'd rather keep it kind of broad because AI is relatively new, right? You know, we've been using it for 3 years and other things. You wake up tomorrow morning, somebody else has done something different. And we're gonna agree on something with AI and it's in the policy, but then tomorrow it's totally changed. Right? No one really knows right now because it's really in its infancy, the AI situation in schools and everything else. I'd rather see something broader so you don't have to go back every month, every 6 months to redo something. Because we know by the time we put that into a policy, it's changed again. Right. And I think about the internet when it first came out. I have to imagine the first time the BOE met on what to do with the internet. That was before everyone had a cell phone, before everyone had a laptop, but they had some policy, but overnight it changes. AI is very different than what we've seen before. It's gonna change every minute. I mean, look at GPT. When I first started using it, it was like the hottest thing. But then a month later, we were on the training, don't use it because of this, this, and this. So something else came out. And now there's something better than Gemini that's coming out. So I think we definitely need something on AI, but it needs to be a little broader so we don't keep reinventing the wheel every time something else changes in this topic. And it's going to change frequently. And that's my biggest fear. We're going to have something in the policy and then tomorrow it's going to be different and then we have to go back to policy. By the time we approve it, it's going to be different again and so on and so forth. And that's my opinion on this matter too.
Any other comments on use of artificial intelligence policy? All right, seeing none, we'll move on to policy 6146, requirements for graduation.
I know you can't believe you're seeing this again, but this one is a very clean change. It's just getting rid of the text of the class of 2025.
Mrs. Guernsey?
Well, since you opened it, one of the areas that I've been interested in for many years looking at, and I have tried to approach this from different angles, and I'm still interested in board feedback on this, is looking at on page B for the credits that are required in the area of the arts. We require 0.5 credits. This is like the lowest of the low. We're not competitive with really almost anyone in Fairfield County, definitely not across the state or in the United States of America. So that's something that I'd like this board to think about, increasing that to 1.0. I mean, it's tricky, of course, because every time we add something, it's can be a burden for our students, but we're just simply not competitive in this area. And as our visual arts program shrinks, it's sort of an extra area of concern for me. So while we have this open, I'd be interested to know if that's something that is worth pursuing for me to do. Just general feedback from board members. Thanks.
Ms. Reza?
No. At this point, no. I don't. For your feedback, I would not want to go down that path at this point.
Anyone else want to offer comment on that particular issue? Mr. Lee?
It doesn't the state set the requirements for education, graduation for seniors?
only very broadly. It's left up to individual districts to chop up the requirements that the state makes, and we can always increase the make it more more requirements. We can add those. Mrs. Jacobson.
I remember this, and Mrs. Maxon Kennelly might, somebody might remember. We didn't have this in here at all. And then we realized we had to add it, and we've been slowly, because of the graduating seniors at that time, we had to get credit for this. And then a whole bunch of things were counting towards it. And I don't know where we stand on that right now. But I do recall us saying that once we got through those classes, that we would want to at least discuss bringing it into the norm, which is the 1.0. But I'm also very sensitive, you know that I am, about adding anything without taking something else away, because that reduces options. So, yes and no. Because I think that was the original intent from my recollection. And I do think that we are, or know that we are just way out of the norm on this, in our area. The other question, so thank you for raising it. And I don't mean to, I know Mrs. Maxon Kennelly started out with a very clean read, but Mrs. Maxon Kennelly, on the physical education and wellness piece, we only require the 0.5 in PE. And, you know, this has been bugging me for a while that we don't have other options or courses that we're counting towards the other 0.5. And it just bugs me. Other districts do. You could see like all these different classes that they're counting in addition to PE. Like you might take PE 1 or 2 years, and then you might take something else in this bucket to get to the 1.0. Was that discussed at all, and how we're operationalizing that at this point?
I think our discussion on this policy was about 10 seconds.
Just taking out the
It was just, we went for that because that was a much, obviously, bigger discussion. And I remember well, we've been asking for years, you know, well, but what about,
policy is not being operationalized?
you know, and also in health and safety, we've talked about that quite a bit, and it was always just a topic for another day. So no, but just to be clear, that our policy discussion was just, let's get that change done, and we did not go any further than that. But I'm glad you bring that up again, because it's something we keep bringing up and it doesn't move forward. But it's good to have the board.
It is the policy.
Yep.
Of the existing policy. Not that I would make changes, obviously, for anything for like this class of 26 or like 20, right? I mean, you can't put things upon students as they're like kind of. I don't know what's happening with the social studies curriculum and when that's coming forward, and just like how that connects to all this. But anyway, I think that thank you.
Yeah, I might observe there's no restriction to us bringing the graduation policy back up again. If there's enough interest from board members to take a deep dive to interface with administration about, yeah, I mean, if there's the cleanup that's before us, and it doesn't prevent us from doing a deeper dive further on. Mr. Krasnoff.
Just to that point, we did briefly dive in a little bit at curriculum committee to try to understand what classes were counting for what and why and how and what buckets they fell under. I really think it'd be good for us to all take a look at it again and just wrap our heads around what we're doing, how we're doing it, and have an understanding from central office how they're looking at it as well. I think it would be pretty meaningful for the board to say. Thanks.
Any more comments on requirements for graduation? All right, moving on. Policy 6161.12, library material review and reconsideration.
So the overarching topic for the next 3 policies is that these are state statute required. And that is not to say that we didn't tweak some language. There was also a lot of the language that we had, and we kept Dr. Zavajancic very busy in policy, checking the statute again and again. As we said, do we have to say that? And the answer repeatedly was, yes, you have to say that. So that just as a general approach to this. But again, that's not to say that we didn't make some changes in policy, but I open that up to board questions now.
Mr. Krasnov.
Just have one big question and maybe it's required. Do we have to review the book on one complaint about a book? Okay, thank you.
Mrs. Jacobson.
I do want to add though, that keeping in mind, and I'm sure you saw this in the policy, yes, we have to review it, but it stays on the shelf while that review is taking place, just to be clear about that.
But we need to set up a formal review committee and go through the whole process. That's kind of what I was getting. Okay, thank you.
And it is also defined who can bring a complaint.
Correct. That's a big difference.
Sorry, Mrs. Jacobson, I stepped on you.
That's okay. I'm going to start with the anything I bring up is from the statute. So clarification, if Mr. Zavajantic was the person to do that. I'm going to start with the item that I saw missing from all three that is supposed to be in all three. And it is the reference to 10-15C on the anti-discrimination language in the statute that was supposed to be in all three.
Viewpoint discrimination?
Yeah, the all library materials shall be evaluated and made accessible in accordance with the protections against discrimination set forth in section 10-15C of the general statutes, including but not limited to discrimination based on race, color, sex, gender identity, religion, national origin, sexual orientation, or disability. That was in the top part of the statute. That is supposed to be in all three. Is there a reason why that was not included?
These are CABE language. I do see it in the first one, 6161.12, second paragraph, about halfway down. It doesn't list it the way you do, but it does.
The language that's in that second paragraph also has to be in there.
Yeah,
like-
because of origin, background.
No, that's a totally different part of the statute.
Alls I can say is this is what the lawyers gave us that was connected to the statute.
Okay, so just if you might want to pull it up,
Yep.
it's page 477 of the bill, where that references for all three of them, and I'm just raising it, that I saw. I went through each one to see like, check, it was in there or not. So for the first one then, library material review and reconsideration, if you go
Can
to
I stop at Mrs. Jacobson, just so we're on this, can you're referencing that, can you reread where it says, I know what you said it says, but where does it in the statute that it says
page
it's?
477.
I understand, do you have that in front of you? Obviously, I don't.
Okay, so Mr. Asa, if you go to the legal reference in the back,
I know how to find it, I don't have a computer on me, what I'm
Oh, I see
asking
what you're
is, what you're referencing here, do you have the specific words in the statute that say that it must be in there word for word?
yes, so each of such policies shall provide for, I mean, I didn't memorize it, but they all have to have each of these sections.
Understood, and the body of these does the spirit of that. So why wouldn't that count as that without specifically placing the quotation of the word for word in it? When I read that and it said it shall provide for that, my assumption was based on how these did, because I did look at the statute. I feel that we met the burden of that in the way this was written, and I believe CABE did too.
Okay, well, this section, that is the way that this is worded, is its own
I'm talking about the
sentence.
policy in totality.
Okay,
Meets the criteria and the burden of that statement in the legislative language.
okay, so I don't know what to tell you. I'm citing 10-15C as.
I
one of the
understand that
sections.
we're going by what the attorneys said, and they believed that this met the burden of what the spirit of that language in the legislative bill was.
I don't think the spirit of legislation is up for interpretation.
Well, I also don't think you're an attorney, so I'm just asking
mean,
in
it's
the
a plain
language.
It's a plain language of the statute. It's supposed to be in each of the policies.
Okay, well then we'll have to go back to CABE and the attorneys who didn't think so.
Okay, fine, great.
It seems fundamentally this is a question for CABE. It's not going to be sorted at this table. Yeah, Mr. Krasnov.
Usually we just have to say the legally protected classes. You don't have to list them all, but you usually
Okay,
have to
so
say.
David, so Mr.
that.
Krasnov, this statute specifically says what has to be verbatim in these policies. It's not like optional language. So, okay, can I finish, Mr. Peterson?
You have the floor, Mrs. Jacobson.
Thank you. 2A, I believe that word recommendation, Mrs. Maxon-Kennelly, is supposed to be a request for reconsideration and not recommendation. think it was maybe like an auto spell or something. 2A, first word in the third line. A request for reconsideration, right? Sure. Page 480 of the statute, Mr. Zavajancic talks about what the form, and I thought I just am bringing it up here. The form is supposed to specify, require such individual to specify which portion or portions of such material shall such individual object to, and provide an explanation of the reasons for such objection and such individual's full legal name, address, and telephone number.
It's in the regulations. The form is in the regulations,
But it says it has to be in the policy.
letting you know it's in the regulations.
Okay, I didn't see the regulations,
I
but
understand.
it is supposed to be in the policy, so there's that. And then there was another section, Dr. Zavajancic or Mrs. Maxon-Kennelly, that says the process for petitions to challenge any library and other educational material, display, or student program shall neither favor nor disfavor any group based on protected characteristics, as a statement.
Which are the ones you referred to earlier.
Yeah, so that was another line. I just literally went through it, so
I understand.
I just was wondering why each of these things weren't included in the policy.
Mr. Jacobson, can I observe, I pulled up the statute and the section that you referenced. It also says, in developing each such policy, the board shall have control over the content of each such policy, provided such policies are in accordance with the provisions of this section.
Exactly.
And the section does not say that we need to include the language verbatim.
Okay, so it does, okay,
I'm looking right at it.
okay. Well, let's get it clarified. I don't have anything else on that policy. Oh, wait, no, I do. There was another section that for each of the three that says this policy shall be.
Can you
reviewed.
place me, where are you in the policy?
It's not in here.
Oh, but
It's, okay, it's another, for the three items, each one is supposed to include a section, statement that says this policy shall be reviewed and updated as necessary every 5 years.
It's in there.
Where is that?
On 6161.12A, last line before, or the line right before definitions.
Which one?
Right,
Yep.
Above the definitions at the bottom.
Oh, thank you. Is that in all three? Okay. Okay. So I'm done on that one, on that first one. If anyone has anything else.
Any other questions about policy 6161.12? Questions about 6161.13? Questions about 6161.14, library display and program?
Two comments for both of those on the 10-15C reference, which probably should be a legal reference as well, and the 5 years, just on those last two. My only two.
All right. With that, I think we're ready to move to section 8B, first reading of policies to delete. Delete policy 3541.4, bus accidents with children aboard. Delete policy 3541.44, rental vehicles, and delete policy 6163.1, library media centers.
So very quickly, the first one for transportation has been incorporated into the other policy that we reviewed tonight regarding bus accidents. Rental vehicles we do not use straight up. So Mr. Papa George is recommending that deletion. And the last one, again, incorporated into a much more full version in the policies we were just discussing. So needless to say, I would not recommend these for deletion unless we first make the move to approve those other policies at the next meeting.
Mrs. Jacobson.
So Mrs. Mixon-Kelly, thank you for that explanation. On the library media one, so right now there's sort of this process who does the curation. And just for the record, this is being deleted because in the other policies, we were basically saying this sieve process goes away and it's just a library media specialist per se. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Any further questions on 6161.14? All right, with that, I think we can move on. We've done a lot of work on these. These are very important. I'll be in contact with with Mrs. Maxon Kennelly in her position as the chair of the policy committee in terms of going forward. Moving on, 8C, consideration and possible action on bylaw amendments. We have two, one that I suggested and one that Mrs. Flynn, who was unable to be with us tonight, rewrote it for our reconsideration. She asked that we hold this for the next meeting. I don't know if anyone has an objection to doing that, or. I guess, does anyone want to make an amendment to the agenda to take it off? All right, seeing none, it's up for consideration. It's been in our packet. This is I think a relatively uncontroversial. You want to comment on it, Ms. Jacobson?
I do. Mr. Peter, and this is kind of to you actually. Totally support this change to the public comment section area, but my concern was creating a conflict with section 4. So where it says, and so for guys, I'm talking about the part of the bylaws where it says for regular meetings, here's the order of agenda. And for special meetings, it's call to order, pledge of allegiance, business items, adjournment. Shall be. This is down in the public comment section, and I was afraid, do you feel that creates a conflict between section 4? And my friendly amendment would have been, under adjournment, just add this same sentence, that the chair may add. Do you know what I'm saying? Because it says shall be this order in 4, and then down in the public comment section, this amendment is affording liberty with that. I just get technical in the sense, is that a conflict now? Right, between the two sections, and if so, if we interpret it that way, my recommendation was to simply just do this.
Yeah, I guess my take on it was, I kind of thought when she brought this idea up that was where she was going to put it. I understand the idea of putting it in public comment because then that creates a kind of nexus of information about where we can and put public comment and where it should otherwise be. I don't, because it is very explicit that the chair may add public comment to a special meeting agenda. I see no conflict. Well, because it's spelled out specifically that this is a possibility for a special meeting agenda.
Shall be this in this section, regardless of what it says in that section, like 10 minutes.
I understand, and look, but I think this board is also very friendly to the idea of public comment.
They are.
And so, yeah,
I just want to make it better or clearer if necessary, but if
Understood.
no one interprets it that way, and you're kosher, then I won't.
Mr. Asa.
Yeah, I actually think it's a really good point. But my fear with it is where it says shall be, that if we insert something in there, that it will be always expected that there would be public comment. So I think the balance here gives the discretion.
Keeping the word may.
Yeah, I don't, to your point, I don't see the conflict, but I understand why you raised it.
Any further comments?
Well, we would have to make a motion, right?
We would have to make a motion and it would need to carry by 2/3.
Okay, so are we talking, since it's listed consideration, are we talking about the second one now too before we do
Well,
a motion? Or
let's deal with them one at a time because they're different articles on the agenda. So the motion is I move that the Fairfield Board of Education bylaws be amended to add a new Article 5, Section 6, Part A, Number 3, reading, the chair may add public comment as an agenda item to special meeting agendas. Can I have Ms. Jacobson, seconded by Mr. Lee? It's on the floor. Any further comments from board members?
I'd just like to say that, like, as we said, many of us said in the last thing, I think this is a great addition and I think it should pass.
Yep, agree.
All right, this is an internal board matter, so I won't put it up for public comment. All in favor? This passes by a 7-0 unanimous vote. Thank you very much. Moving on to item 8C2, amendment to Article 2. This is one that I had offered, came up in my mind with the Dwight Building Committee. In the past, as I put out in my rationale, it has been the Board of Ed's policy to practice to appoint non-voting liaisons to building committees. State law has changed. State law now says that the chair of the Board of Ed or chair's designee shall be a voting member of those bodies. Since we are embarking on a bunch of capital projects, not just this year, but in years to come, I wanted to make sure that that was clarified and that we didn't leave it as simply a liaison in an area that talks about kind of non-voting responsibilities of board members. So with that, I will make the motion. I move that the Board of Education bylaws be amended to 1, remove line E from Article 2, Section 3A5 and read accordingly. 2, add a new item 6 to Article 2, Section 3A, reading, the chair or the chair's designee will serve as a voting member on any school building committee established by the town from time to time. Number 3, renumber Article 2, Section 3A accordingly. Can I have a second, Mr. Asa? Any discussion, Ms. Jacobson?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Peterson. Agree that this is necessary for us to do. I just wanted to clarify between the statute and your motion. Was there a reason why you felt it necessary to add the word voting? Since that wasn't, are you just trying to be clear? Because the statute doesn't say voting. I just was curious why you added that word. Just to
I think that's the clear implication of the statute.
Okay, so it's just to make it clear that by being a member,
Yes.
we are saying that that person is a voting member.
Right, and again, I wanted to take it out of the section where we're talking about non-voting liaisons and put it into a different section.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Lee?
Does that mean if a building committee or any of the committees that they're representing with the voting rights doesn't have enough for a quorum, that the Board of Ed rep then makes it a quorum for voting?
As a voting member, yes.
And does that change when you're reaching out to the chair of that building committee for any kind of information that you need to share within the board? Does that then constitute a potential meeting in that case, or no?
No, I don't see how that would be the case unless discussions were taking place among the group in a setting that's not a publicly noticed meeting.
Okay.
Mr. Asa?
No, and I would just say I fully support this. And as a former building committee member prior to being on the Board of Education and then being on that same building committee as a liaison and not having a vote, I think this is an important step. I support the state statute and I support this change, ensuring it, and I think it will help in many ways.
Any further questions or comments? All right, all in favor? That's a 7-0. Thank you very much. Moving on to item 9, superintendent's report.
Okay, just a few things. October is Principal Appreciation Month. During the month, we celebrate our principals. Each day they take on the responsibility, of creating safe, welcoming, and thriving learning environments for all students. Principals are often the first to arrive and the last to leave each and every day. They go above and beyond to connect with families, support teachers, and make thoughtful decisions that put our students first. I don't know if you've been on our social media page throughout the month, but we do feature each day one of our principals and answers to questions to our students on things like what do they think they do all day. If you haven't read them, it's pretty interesting. What our students and how they see our principals, obviously all in a positive light, but it's humorous to say the least. So I encourage you to go back. It just gives you a little bit of insight on how our principals are viewed by each of our students throughout the buildings, at different levels, what they think. Pretty cool. In that sense, as we all know, Hispanic Heritage Month is concluding. Holland Hill students and staff held a special assembly to celebrate the rich and vibrant cultures within our school community to honor Hispanic Heritage Month. Students shared facts about different countries and their own heritage, showcasing the diversity and pride that makes Holland Hill such a special place. Couple of things tied together with what's going on and some of the things we talked about as a rationale for reducing screen time. The First Church of Fairfield on November 5th is holding at 7 p.m. An Anxious Generation evening, and to explore Jonathan Haidt's book, engage in a discussion facilitated by Bridget Carney, LPC, and it's helpful for parents to learn tools for raising resilient kids in a worried world. So it's open to all parents, caregivers, teachers, counselors, and community members. So I encourage everyone to take a look and attend on Wednesday, November 5th, 7 p.m. at the First Church of Fairfield. In unison with that, I participated on September 29th at the School of Education and Human Development at Fairfield University in their Dean's Dialogue Series. I was part of a panel, and we talked a lot about pandemic aftershocks, social media saturation, academic pressure, and the collective unease and anxiety in America, which has reached an unprecedented level across all age groups and sectors. So Fairfield University brought together this panel of cross-disciplinary experts to explore the impact of anxiety, the roles that educators, healthcare and mental health clinicians, families, spiritual advisors, and community partners can play in responding with empathy, strategy, and systems of care. We had over 200 people attend. We had some teachers in the district as well as educators across the Fairfield County attend. Some students from Fairfield University attended, and I thought was very interesting that they had an interest. They didn't have to come. They signed up to attend and participated. We also had some parents in the audience, as well as a former board member. Also want to recognize that it is Dyslexia Awareness Month, and on October 7th, Dyslexia Awareness Collaboration kickoff event was held at UConn's Waterbury campus. Our own Janine Goss attended on behalf of the Fairfield Public Schools, as well as Madeline Valillo, a Fairfield Ludlow High School senior, who shared her brave and inspiring story. Madeline's powerful words redefined dyslexia for an audience of educators, legislators, parents, and students. She offered insight, hope, and encouragement for all those in attendance. So I think I sent you all the News 12 coverage on that. I thought it was an important piece. And Madeline was extremely brave to participate and share her story. And last but not least, I do want to recognize grade 5 teacher Celia Edwards of Osborne Hill School. She was the only teacher in the district that had 100% of her students at proficient or above on the SBA, and 65% scored a 4. So just want to give a little kudos to Celia. Celia worked extremely hard with her students in preparing them for the test. So she was, again, the only teacher in the district that had 100% at proficient or above on SBA, and she teaches grade 5.
Love to hear it. Any board questions? Mrs. Guernsey?
I guess this is maybe a question comment about Mrs. Edwards, who I celebrate. I think she's amazing, and she taught my own children. Her background is that for many, many years she did specialize in math and focus on that program. So I think that that's an important part of this story as well.
It's interesting. I was going to bring that up, but so she did, and I think Janine has a great little story on how she was attending the early on professional development as we were shifting our literacy focus. And I just find it extremely encouraging that after many years of solely focusing on math, in year 1 of teaching across all disciplines, that in literacy, all her students did score. So kudos to Mrs. Edwards again for entering in an area where she was a little unsure of herself. She really focused in on the professional learning that was provided by Janine and the rest of the folks in the district, and her students definitely benefited from it.
Any other questions? All right, committee and liaison reports. Mr. Lee.
Report from the HVAC IAQ committee is they have more or less completed the first phase in the schools. They are now going through the punch list before we celebrate and hand the keys to the town. Obviously, the air conditioning is working fine. Now we get to see how the heaters are working and everything else. But for the most part, everything on that checklist, now they're just going through is complete. Now they're doing a punch list, and hopefully within the next 6 months, we'll be able to wrap up the first phase.
Ms. Jacobson.
Facilities is meeting tomorrow. But I know Mr. Peterson sent an email to the board, but just for the public, RTM will be reviewing the Dwight project on Monday at the committee level and the following Monday for a vote. So just wanted to put that out there for the public.
Mrs. Mexican?
Yeah, thank you. And just wanted to follow up actually through the chair to Mrs. Jacobson. Just only because I wanted to know if it had any impact on policy is that there was something in there about, it didn't say cell phone, but there was something about regulations for technology. And I didn't know if that was something related to this where I should make sure to listen. And it was low down on the agenda. I'm so sorry, I can't remember what it indicated. But so the point being, you're not talking about cell phone or technology on the facility. Got it. No, I just wanted to make sure that if I needed to listen in for this. All the way. Thank you so much.
I'll say that, Mr. Krasnov.
Just real brief, CES, we met, it's gonna be one of the last meetings before a bunch of new board members take over, because of elections. But we did actually talk about cell phones, which was interesting. Wanted to get a feel what other districts are doing, what they're having success with and not. Most of them opted not to go with the bags, but everyone is pretty happy with putting in policies in place to remove cell phones from their schools in different ways, shapes, or forms. They're all seeing very positive impacts. So I'm glad we're headed that direction.
Great. I'll reiterate what, Mr. Gray.
I just want to say, David, thank you for continuing to go to the CES meetings. And I would hope that being that you're on the board next year as a given, that you will, when we make the committee and liaison reports, requests that you suggest and to stay on there.
I thought you were, Nick, I thought you were going to swap with me since you decided to grace us with your presence again.
And I just want to say, adding on to what Mrs. Jacobs has said about the Dwight Building Project, I know that Mr. Papa George is trying to arrange the first meeting, an organizational meeting of the Dwight Building Committee at some point next week. It has not been determined exactly what the date is yet, but that is in process. And nothing about the project is likely to be discussed, just what the responsibilities of the building committee are, and talk about schedules and elect officers.
So just follow up on that. So since that's convening, if anybody wants to serve on that committee, should they let you know, or just how are you handling that?
Well, I'm currently going to serve on it as in my position as chair.
Okay.
Some other decision will need to be made in a couple of weeks.
Oh, okay. I mean, after the election.
I am not standing for re-election. Correct.
Okay, I see what you're saying. Okay.
Any other questions, comments? Open board comment? Mrs. Maxon-Kennelly?
I just wanted to put in my annual plug that I've been reaching out to PTA presidents regarding Odyssey of the Mind. Delighted to have heard back from 3 schools, hoping to hear from even more. And while I would in no way argue cause and effect, I can't help but make a correlation comment that our 2 Fairfield Ward semifinalists for national merit are also very experienced OMers who have been to Worlds. Not saying cause and effect, but just very enthusiastic plug there.
Mr. Asa?
Just one last thing. I know this doesn't fall under our purview, it's Parks and Rec, but I will say that the Roger Ludlow turf field complex has been pretty well received. The lights are on and serving a lot of kids, and I think it's going pretty well. So happy to have that online, and just another example of how we need more usable space.
Nice, thank you. All right, moving on, number 12, public comment. Anyone wants to come up and comment on items on tonight's agenda? Seeing none. Motion to adjourn. Mr. Asa, seconded by Mr. Lee. All in favor? 7-0. Thank you very much.